Hey, what's up, guys, and welcome to the two-game slate on Saturday. We're going to be looking at and got a couple games with massive playoff implications, but how is that going to affect our DraftKings lineups? I'll get into that after this.
There is a ton of value in current underdog playoff best ball ADP. Elite offenses like the Bills are easy to stack. Take advantage of uncertainty and start drafting now. Use the promo code SEEK for up to $100 match on your first deposit. And subscribe to Heat Seeker Sports on YouTube for underdog strategy and drafting shows.
Hey, what's up, guys? Simon Edwards at PumaCom here with Heat Seeker Sports. You're watching a breakdown of the two-game slate on Saturday. Going to take a look at two games that have some big implications for playoffs. The Buffalo Bills are fighting to make it into the playoffs, potentially win their division. The division is still up for grabs, and we have a game in Pittsburgh and Cincinnati where both teams are still alive, and they are both fighting for their playoff lives. All these teams have been affected massively by injuries, and the only odd man out is the Chargers, but the Chargers are in a situation where they just fired their coach that sucked, and they finally got rid of him. So the Chargers are in a situation where they're getting the interim head coach bounce. So we'll see what happens there. But make sure to hit the like button. Get me to 15 likes. I'm going to try to put out a shorter video tomorrow before lock with my favorite plays once I'm able to digest the slate a little bit more. And make sure to hit subscribe on the YouTube channel. Hit subscribe and then sign up for those alerts because you want to get alerts when I post these videos. I posted 2 showdown videos. So after this, you might want to check those out where I break down each one of these games in depth and give you the plays from a more micro level than I'm able to do on a 2-game slate. But yeah, check out the game script episodes and get an idea of like some of the stats that I've forgotten by the time I get to this show. So it'll help you out with getting a better idea of what some of those micro matchups are and stuff like that. And on top of that, make sure to sign up for Underdog. Go to Underdog right now, create an account, make a deposit for $100. And they're going to match you on that first deposit up to $100 if you use the promo code SEEK, SEEK, just like Heat Seekers. So make sure to use that promo code. They will do up to $100 match for you. And you're going to want to do that because you've got playoff best ball going on right now. And playoff best ball is probably one of the most fun games that you can play to get you some action during the playoffs. And keep the playoffs interesting if your homer teams have been eliminated, and gives you a rooting interest in the playoffs. It's a very fun game to play. You get weekly payouts as the playoffs go on, as your teams advance, and it's not something that you have to wait an entire season to get a payout. You're getting those weekly. So very fun game to play, and that goes hand in hand with subscribing to my YouTube channel because I'm going to be doing a bunch of shows with playoff best ball where I'm drafting, kind of giving you guys strategy, telling you where the value is that I'm seeing and all that kind of stuff. Hit on the Rams. Like the Rams, I've been drafting a bunch of the Rams lately, and they just improved their playoff chances to 75%. So I got a ton of value on those Rams. I was drafting them like super late in those drafts. So I have a ton of Nakua, a ton of Cup. I like the Rams as a dangerous team in the playoffs too, but I'll get into that on my shows that I do for playoff best ball specifically. So right now, let's get into this slate. As I said, 2 games with some pretty big implications. The only team that really doesn't have any playoff hopes is the Chargers, but they have pride hopes this week. Got rid of their coach. Players, completely talented team. They just had bad coaching for the past few years. So they've been underperforming for a few years now under Brandon Staley. And he's finally getting booted after an embarrassing loss to the Raiders last week. Raiders put up 63 points on them. It's just like, you don't get much more embarrassing than that for these Chargers, who are, just a good team, and they have so many talented players, but just completely misused by that coach, Brandon Staley. And you see that, the Twitter video where he's doing like his stretching pumps and stuff like that. And that is like the perfect epitome of what that coach was. But he is gone now, and they got an interim head coach, and hopefully, I guess not hopefully, because I want the Bills to make it to the playoffs. I've been drafting them in playoff best ball and been getting those discounts on the Bills right now while there's uncertainty. But for the Chargers' sake, maybe they can figure things out on how to utilize all that talent on that team now that head coach is out of there. Just boneheaded decisions all the time with that guy. But we got Josh Allen. He's going to probably be the chalkiest quarterback on the slate. I don't think you really need to get away from him. If you were going somewhere else, you might play Easton Stick. He put up 20 DraftKings points last week against the Raiders in garbage time. If you think it's going to be a blowout again this week, then he has that 20-point upside, and at a $5,500 salary, that's not too bad. But Allen, you really don't need to get away from Allen, I don't think, but we'll build some lineups and see where the salaries take us. But he's at 8,100. Jake Browning is at 6,100. That's probably a little overpriced for this matchup. He's playing Pittsburgh in Pittsburgh, and that is a tough matchup to play. They got a good pass rush, and their secondary is not great, but they've been doing pretty good against the wide receivers. They're only allowing 7 DraftKings points a game to wide receivers. And on top of that, Cincinnati is missing Jamar Chase. Although I do like T. Higgins in this matchup. He does well against the coverage that the Steelers use. And he gets probably a 30% target share against that coverage, but he also gets a huge bump when Jamar Chase is out of the lineup. But he's also going to get that much more attention from the defense. So Easton Stick went over him. The other guy's Mason Rudolph. Now, Mason Rudolph is interesting to me because he has weapons. He favors Deontay Johnson when he plays as the starter of the Steelers. At least he has historically. And he has weapons on that team. They just haven't been able to unlock them with shitty quarterback play out of Kenny Pickett and then Mitch Trubisky. But Mason Rudolph, he's a veteran guy. He started a bunch of games like a few years ago. He's most famous for getting hit on the head by Garrett with his helmet. So Myles Garrett hit him on the head with the helmet. They had like a big melee there, but that's what he's most famous for. But he's a veteran guy coming in. He doesn't have a whole bunch of recent tape on him. And those are the situations where I like these backup quarterbacks because they know how to read defenses. And Cincinnati really doesn't have a good defense to read to begin with. They're going to be playing at home. They're playing for their playoff lives. And, Mason Rudolph, he could come in here and surprise at 4,800 too. Like, we love those cheap salaries. You can get him at a very cheap salary with some, upside potential with the weapons that he has. He would be, I think, the main pivot if you want to get off of Josh Allen. I just think that Browning is too expensive, and I think Browning, kind of the book is out on him a little bit. He had an emotional win last week against Minnesota, the team that cut him. And, in that game, it took him a while to get going in that game. He ended up with 324 yards. But, in a tougher matchup against Pittsburgh, I take that back. Minnesota is a tough matchup with that defense that they have. Like, they put a lot of pressure on quarterbacks. But I think, Pittsburgh, a division rival, might be a little bit tougher, especially where they're playing in Pittsburgh this week. So that's where I lean. Maybe Rudolph over Browning. I know it sounds ridiculous, but just think from the salary that you're saving yourself $1,300 by going to Rudolph if you were thinking about Browning. So if you go to running back, you got Eckler, has not done much at all, and he's in a tough matchup against Buffalo, who's been good against the run lately. You got James Cook, who's been on fire lately. and he's got a good matchup against the Chargers. And it probably is going to be a game script that favors him, honestly. But I do think that Josh Allen is going to get that passing game going against the Chargers as well. They're going to want to get that fired up, before they go into this tough stretch of games. They gotta beat New England next week, a division rival, and then they got to beat Miami in Week 18. I think they have to win out the season to get into the playoffs. They're going to have to get Josh Allen going on that passing game. Don't be surprised if they make a effort to do that this week. But Cook can also benefit. I think he can do onslaughts of the Bills still. Let's just cut to the chase. Let's get Allen in there. Let's put in Cook, and let's put in Diggs, because Diggs has got to get going. Look at Diggs. He hasn't done anything the past few weeks. He got that 19 points against Philly, but other than that, he hasn't done anything. So let's get Diggs in there. Let's look at these running backs real quick. Mixon has a good matchup, but the guy I kind of like better is Chase Brown. Chase Brown is 4,900, so you're getting a discount there. And you got Jalen Warren. I like his matchup too against Cincinnati. If you look at the showdown show that I do, you can get a little bit more analysis on that, just straight analysis on it. But Cincinnati, the matchup that they have, Pittsburgh is giving up 24 DraftKings points a game to the running back position. Now, normally, like Mixon would be the guy, but Mixon's been giving up about half that workload to Chase Brown. So if you're looking at the salary difference between Mixon at 6,800 and Chase Brown at 4,900, I mean, I kind of lean towards those savings. And I've been on top of Chase Brown for the past few weeks. I noticed that this beat writers heading into a showdown slate, we're talking him up. I took that information, I put him in a few showdown lineups, and I was watching him closely. I noticed he was getting a bunch of starts in the beginning of the game, a bunch of carries in the beginning of the game. It seemed like they were trying to make a concentrated effort on getting him a lot more work, with Mixon being inefficient. And so I called him in the following main slate as a guy that you wanted to maybe start. He ended up getting 19 DraftKings points at a $4,900 salary, similar to the situation he's in now. So, I like the work that he's getting lately. I like the matchup here, and I think that Chase Brown is a good pivot off of Mixon. We'll have to see what their ownership is. Let's see what ownership is on Mixon versus Chase real quick. All right, so if we find Chase Brown is looking at 10% DraftKings ownership on that slate, and Mixon is looking at 46% DraftKings ownership. So he's a great pivot off of Mixon, especially given like his equal matchup. I kind of think that Pittsburgh is going to be playing from ahead. So expect Chase Brown to maybe be playing from behind, and he's used in that passing game a decent amount. He had 80 yards receiving last week, including that long touchdown, 54-yard touchdown against Indy. So expect him to be used more in the passing game. 3 targets last week against Minnesota. Only 7 attempts last week against Minnesota. But if you look at Joe Mixon, just to compare, Mixon only had 10 attempts last week. So basically half the work went to Chase Brown. Half the touches went to Chase Brown. So it gives you an idea of what the workload situation is. I do like Jalen Warren too. So if we wanted to, maybe we save Chase Brown for if we need him. Let's get Jalen Warren in there. Gives us 4,100 per guy. If we go to tight end, let's see. Kincaid has been hindered by Dawson Knox's return. Freiermuth I really like this week, actually. Freiermuth has done well versus Cincinnati. If you look at Freiermuth's past games against Cincinnati, he had, first of all, Rudolph, Freiermuth had 9 targets, 5 yards, and 31 receptions in his last game with Rudolph. I think that was his only game with Rudolph, and it was a couple years ago. But Freiermuth versus Cincinnati in general, his last few games, 11 targets, 9 receptions, 120 yards. That was this season. 12 targets, 8 receptions, 79 yards. 10 targets, 5 receptions, 75 yards. 4 targets, 40 yards, and a touchdown. 5 targets, 3 receptions, 22 yards, and a touchdown. So, basically over 10 points every time he's faced off against Cincinnati. And he's had a boatload of targets against them too. So I like Freiermuth this week. Let's just get him in there now. As far as defenses, I kind of like the Steelers as the cheap option here. So let's get the Steelers in there. That leaves us with 4,700 per guy. Yeah, so I think we're going to need Chase Brown. So let's get him out. Let's get in Brown. Let's get in Chase Brown. Let's get back in Cook in the flex. That leaves us with 2 wide receiver spots. Right now we have, both games, pretty much represented. Pittsburgh, we got Warren, Freiermuth, and the Steelers D plays to a Pittsburgh script, and that makes sense with having Brown as a run back. If you're playing from behind, throwing more to Brown maybe. Buffalo, we got Allen to Cook so far. So we need to get a receiver. Oh, and Diggs. So we need to get another receiver. Let's look at our wide receivers here and find some value. I like Josh Palmer at $5K as a run back. If we're looking at other options, let's go ahead and put Palmer in there as a run back. That leaves us with 4,200. We could put Shakir in there. Shakir hasn't been getting much work the past few weeks just because they're not using as many 3 wide receiver sets that they were using when Knox was out. Alex Erickson is a guy that I think is interesting because they are weak against the slot. Buffalo, or their weak spot is against the slot, basically, and he's at 3,100. Maybe we want to take Joshua Palmer out and put in Erickson. And then we have 6K. That leaves us in Gabe Davis territory. So if you wanted to do a double stack and just do the whole onslaught with Buffalo, you could get Gabe Davis in there and have 8K left over. So if you wanted to put someone else in over Erickson, if you're looking at the 3,900 range, you got options like Shakir and Guyton. Guyton's got some upside. And that's about it. I don't like anybody really cheaper than that. Darius Davis would be interesting if we get an indication that the Chargers are going to try to use their young guys a lot more. But Erickson in that slot role against Buffalo is a pretty good spot. And I like how the rest of this team kind of comes together. With that extra 800 too. Let's put Gabe Davis in there. With that extra 800, you can swap out the defense. You get any defense you want, basically. So it's kind of an easy build there. I think that, given the individual matchups, this is something that I like. You know what? I would like to get Deontay in there. He's only 5,100. Yeah, that leaves us in the same spot. I like him better than Gabe Davis, honestly. I think that Deontay has a great matchup. Got 3 Pittsburgh guys in there and a Cincy guy. That might be a little bit too much representation from that first game that has a low total. But I think that's a game that can go over the total potentially with both those teams playing for their playoff lives. And it could be one of those situations where, like the game with Josh Allen just disappoints. We've seen those plenty of times. But if you wanted to do that, build, let's say that that game ends up more of a Cook game. let's get Rudolph in there because we got all these Steelers in here already. Instead of Erickson, let's put in the defense. Let's say the Bills D is taking away points from Josh Allen too. Let's put them in there, and let's swap out Erickson for 6,900. We put Higgins in there. So Higgins is another good run back in that game. Like, I don't hate that, but that is basically, it's an easy lineup to put together, but you got a whole lot of exposure to a total game. But I think all those matchups kind of fit, and they match up. They work with the correlation. So that's like a way to go with Mason Rudolph. Let's get Allen back in there. I like Deontay. I like Freiermuth. As far as the tight ends, I don't like Kincaid. Don't really like Hudson. Don't like any of these guys. Freiermuth's my favorite tight end on the slate. He's got a good matchup, and he's had that history against Cincinnati. Deontay Johnson, he's got a history with Mason Rudolph too. Listen to Deontay with Mason Rudolph, and he gets a high percentage of the routes against this coverage that Cincinnati uses. Deontay with Rudolph, 13 targets, 7 receptions, 83 yards. 4 targets, 3 receptions, 96 yards. 9 targets, 8 receptions, 81 yards, and a touchdown. 6 receptions, 6 targets, 4 receptions, 64 yards. And then he had a down 1, 2 targets, 1. He might have been hurt in that game. 1 reception, 3 yards. 7 targets, 5 receptions, 84 yards, and a touchdown. 8 targets, 5 receptions, 27 yards. 6 targets, 6 receptions, 77 yards, and a touchdown. And then he had 6 targets, 3 receptions, 52 yards, and a touchdown. So he has a good track record with Mason Rudolph. That's why I like Deontay this week. I probably, in this build, I probably want to get another Buffalo guy in there. So, I think I would lean probably towards Shakir in that situation, and just hope that Shakir gets a little bit more work than he's been getting recently. But that's a direction you can go. If you like Browning, I would go Browning, Chase Brown, because I think that you're going to need that game to be competitive for Browning to do anything. So we want to get T. Higgins in here. T. Higgins is going to be the go-to guy. Let's say that Diggs. Let me see if I can get a way to get Diggs out. Let's say that the Steelers, let's use the defense versus the quarterback. Browning's throwing to Chase Brown and T. Higgins, running it back with Deontay and Freiermuth. And we got Warren in there. I think the guy that I get rid of, Cooks is in there. That's important because we want the Bills not to be throwing touchdowns. So let's get Diggs out there. That gives us, we can put Davis in there, Josh Palmer in there, maybe one of those guys. Let's put Davis in there. That leaves us with 3K. This is what I'm talking about. You don't need to get away from Allen tonight. Chase Brown, if we got rid of him, we could put Mixon in there instead. But I honestly, I like Chase Brown better than Mixon, I think, tomorrow. But that's the direction. Browning to Mixon and Higgins. Let's say all those guys are firing. And then you got Warren, Johnson, and Freiermuth. That's a nice back and forth game. Cincinnati maybe playing from behind. And then on Buffalo, you got Gabe Davis and you got James Cook. And that's your representation there. My favorite build is the Josh Allen version, though. I like going in that direction of Josh Allen. I think that Chase Brown is a good pivot to get you a little bit different with that build if he's going to be 10% owned. And I think having, like more than a couple pieces of, Pittsburgh in that lineup will help you get a little bit separated from the field, because I don't think that's going to be those guys are going to be highly owned. Let me check and see what the ownership is on Deontay. 42%. So he's still pretty decent amount of ownership there, but not the highest on the slate, at least. But I think that Chase Brown, you're going to be competing with 10% of the field if you plug him in. So he's a good guy to differentiate a little bit. And that's what I got for this 2-game slate. Just wanted to do a short one. Make sure to check out the showdown shows that I did. They're called Game Script. You can find them on my YouTube channel. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, because I put out these videos. You're going to want to get alerts for when they are put up. I put out a lot of stuff like shorter videos before lock with my favorite picks when I've had more time to digest the slate. So make sure to check those out. And those Game Script episodes, I do in-depth analysis on the games, all sorts of scenarios on how the game can play out. So check those out and hit the like button. Looking for 15 likes to get those shorter videos out. Get me to 300 subscribers. I need 60 more, so that's why I need to subscribe to that YouTube channel. And then on top of that, subscribe, open an account with Underdog, make your first deposit of $100, and they'll match you up to $100 for new depositors. So thanks, guys. I will see you tomorrow.